Chapter 1. Shipwrecked and stranded on a desert island. Ethan Blackwood, you pervert. A sharp voice cut through the air on the luxurious cruise ship. Sophia Ashbourne bit her lower lip. Her almond-shaped eyes narrowed as she glared at Ethan Blackwood. You were the one peeping from outside the bathroom, weren't you? I never expected you to be such scumbag. All her classmates present at the reunion on deck turned their gazes of disdain towards Ethan. Many of the male classmates were furious, clenching their fists. Sophia Ashbourne, the campus beauty, was the dream girl of countless male classmates. Hey, Miss Ashbourne, you can't just say things. I didn't peep. Ethan Blackwood was utterly confused and quickly tried to explain. While Sophia Ashbourne was beautiful and he had a bit of a crush on her, he wouldn't stoop to such despicable acts. Then how do you explain this ID card that fell outside the bathroom? Sophia Ashbourne held up an ID card, her voice cold. Just moments ago, while showering, she had suddenly heard a noise and the bathroom door had been slightly ajar. She quickly dressed and chased after the person, only to find an ID card left behind. And the owner of this ID was none other than Ethan Blackwood. Now you have no defense. How dare you peep at Sophia, Ethan, you're disgusting. Sophia's best friend, Isabel Hawthorne, with her twin pigtails, her pretty face filled with revulsion. I didn't. Ethan Blackwood's face flushed red as he vehemently denied it. He hadn't even been near the bathroom. How could his ID card have fallen there? It's clear evidence, and you still dare to argue. Apologize to Sophia immediately, exclaimed a man in a designer suit with shining hair, filled with righteous indignation. His name was Lucas Everhart. His family was in real estate, and he was Sophia Ashbourne's most fervent pursuer. Back in school, Lucas Everhart, being a rich second-generation heir, had wrongly claimed a scholarship for impoverished students. Ethan Blackwood usually minded his own business, but seeing that the truly needy students hadn't received their subsidies, he couldn't help but report Lucas, thus offending him. Damn it. You borrowed my clothes before, and you stole my ID card, didn't you? Ethan Blackwood suddenly realized. No wonder this guy had said the sea breeze was too cold and borrowed his clothes. So he had planned to swipe the ID card from his pocket. Nonsense, don't slander me. I wouldn't even want your shabby clothes if you gave them to me. A hint of amusement flashed in Lucas Everhart's eyes. When we get back, I'm going to report you to the counselor. Just wait until you get expelled. Ethan Blackwood was furious. This was clearly retaliation. If he was truly expelled because of this, his more than a decade of painstaking study would be ruined. Sophia, I really didn't peep, believe me. I don't want to hear you speak. Sophia Ashbourne's voice was as cold as ice, her disgust evident. Seeing that he wouldn't listen to his explanation, Ethan Blackwood felt helpless. Boom. Suddenly, a deafening explosion echoed. Immediately after, the ship began to pitch and roll violently, and the people on deck stumbled and screamed in panic. Attention passengers, due to the ship hitting reefs, the hull is severely damaged and the situation is critical. All passengers are requested to immediately board the life rafts and evacuate the cruise ship in an orderly manner. Repeat, attention passengers. Hearing this broadcast, everyone on the ship descended into chaos, filled with panic. Life rafts were limited, and in a life-or-death moment, no one was polite. They scrambled to get onto the life rafts. No one cared about gentlemanly conduct anymore. In a crisis, one's life was paramount. The strong and fit had an advantage, and soon the life rafts were nearly all taken. Ethan Blackwood, though refined in appearance, was quite sturdy and managed to get onto a life raft. Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne, being delicate and weak, couldn't secure a seat at all. Sophia, I don't want to die. I'm still young, and I've never even been in love, boo-hoo. Isabel Hawthorne's face turned pale as she buried her face in her hands and cried. Don't be scared, Jaya, it'll be all right. Sophia Ashbourne gritted her teeth. Though filled with fear, she quietly comforted Isabel Hawthorne. The ship is sinking, hurry and come over. At this moment, Ethan Blackwood's voice suddenly rang out. I'm not getting on the pervert's raft. Sophia Ashbourne snorted coldly, but immediately regretted it. Accustomed to being proud, she realized this was a life-or-death situation. Such willful behavior not only harmed herself, but also her best friend, Isabel Hawthorne. Lucas Everhart, who suffered from chronic kidney deficiency and hadn't managed to get onto a raft, immediately shouted, "Ethan Blackwood, get down here and give me and Sophia your raft." Scram! Ethan Blackwood had no intention of being a doormat. He had already done everything he could for Sophia Ashbourne. As for that idiot Lucas Everhart, even if there hadn't been a shipwreck, Ethan Blackwood would have wanted to kill him. Boom! But then another deafening sound occurred. The cruise ship tilted to a 45-degree angle, with its entire bow sinking into the icy sea. People who lost their balance slid towards the bow with screams of terror, and the scene was utter chaos. Before Ethan Blackwood could even start the life raft, he saw a graceful figure, having lost her balance, come crashing towards him. Bang! "Sophia Ashbourne, you troublesome whale." As consciousness faded, Ethan Blackwood almost wept tears of frustration. A sharp pain shot through his head. Ethan Blackwood, groggy, felt a sense of dryness in his mouth. A salty, stuffy sea breeze blew, bringing him back to his senses. "I'm still alive." Relieved to have survived, Ethan Blackwood hadn't even had time to feel excited before he found himself on a beach. The coastline stretched endlessly in both directions, clearly indicating this was a massive island. Suddenly, Ethan Blackwood felt a sense of panic. There were over 30,000 islands in the Pacific Ocean, and the vast majority of them were uninhabited. Abruptly, Ethan Blackwood spotted a celestial beauty lying on the sand not far away. Sophia Ashbourne. He saw that Sophia Ashbourne's face was pale blue, a clear symptom of drowning. Ethan Blackwood didn't dare to delay. He first cleared the sand and mud from Sophia Ashbourne's mouth and nose, then gently lifted her jaw with both hands to clear her airway. Sophia Ashbourne coughed up a mouthful of seawater and slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was Ethan Blackwood, less than 5 centimeters away. "Ethan Blackwood, you scoundrel, still peeping at me even in the afterlife." Sophia Ashbourne was furious. She was dead, yet his obsession was still so deep. He was truly a persistent ghost. She immediately clenched her fists and delivered a powerful blow to Ethan Blackwood. Ah! Hit in the nose and bleeding profusely, Ethan Blackwood became angry. "Miss Ashbourne, you're ungrateful. We're not dead, you were drowning, and I was saving you just now." Sophia Ashbourne also came to her senses, realizing she was indeed still alive. However, as she looked around and saw only herself and Ethan Blackwood on the vast beach, she eyed him with suspicion. "I'm warning you, don't have any improper thoughts. Otherwise, I'll report you to the counselor as soon as we get back, and you won't graduate." Ethan Blackwood was speechless. He didn't even know if they would survive to return, let alone graduate. Would having a graduation certificate improve his prospects in the underworld? The sweltering heat and lack of water made Ethan Blackwood's mouth dry. He didn't want to waste time arguing with Sophia Ashbourne. In 40 degrees Celsius heat, the body loses 1 liter of water per hour. If he didn't find a water source quickly, he would die of dehydration. The beach was lined with coconut trees, but their trunks soared 30 meters high. Without any tools, unless he climbed them, he couldn't pick coconuts. Ethan Blackwood, hungry and thirsty, clearly didn't have the energy to climb. The only way to get water now was to venture into the dangerous jungle behind them. But to survive, Ethan Blackwood had no choice. "Where are you going?" Seeing this, Sophia Ashbourne quickly followed. Despite her dislike for Ethan Blackwood, in this environment, she knew she would be in great danger alone. In the tropical jungle, danger lurked everywhere. A slight misstep could lead to death from various plants and animals. Ethan Blackwood had read many survival books and watched countless survival videos, and he was well aware of the dangers. Before entering the jungle, Ethan Blackwood found a branch and stuck it into the soil. In the sunlight, the branch cast a shadow. Ethan Blackwood made a mark at the end of the shadow and patiently observed. "What are you doing?" Sophia Ashbourne looked puzzled. determining direction. Getting lost in the jungle meant certain death. Sophia Ashbourne was even more confused. Could a single branch really determine direction? He was lying. Ethan Blackwood waited patiently for 15 minutes. The branch's shadow shifted to a new position. Ethan Blackwood made another mark and then drew a line connecting the two marks. This is a north-south line drawn using the gnomon method. The end with the old mark is west, and the end with the new mark is east. We are entering the jungle heading east, so when we come out, we'll head west, Ethan Blackwood said, taking the lead into the jungle. Sophia Ashbourne, following behind, had her mouth slightly agape, her pretty face stunned. Was there really so much knowledge in just a single branch? As a top student, she was practically an amateur in the wilderness. For a moment, she felt that this guy seemed quite reliable. This must be an illusion. Chapter 2. Dangerous jungle. Black bears appear. In the tropical jungle, Ethan Blackwood walked ahead, while soft groans of pain came from behind him. Sophia Ashbourne had one foot in a sandal, and her other shoe had been washed away by the waves. Her fair soles were rubbed raw, forming blisters, yet she endured the pain and followed Ethan Blackwood. Here, put these on. Ethan Blackwood couldn't bear to see it, and tossed his shoes to Sophia Ashbourne. Are you looking down on me? Sophia Ashbourne was annoyed. Having been academically excellent and exceptionally beautiful, she had always possessed strong self-esteem and a competitive spirit, hating being looked down upon the most. Miss Ashbourne. Don't call me Miss Ashbourne. Miss Ashbourne, there are no medical facilities here. If your foot gets infected, it could fester and turn into a crippling injury, Ethan Blackwood said seriously, without any exaggeration. Sophia Ashbourne shuddered at the thought, immediately deciding not to argue. Although slightly disgusted, she put on the shoes. Seeing Ethan Blackwood barefoot, she asked, "What about you?" As soon as she finished speaking, Ethan Blackwood picked up some Barringtonia racemosa bark, casually wove it, and put it on his feet. Barringtonia racemosa trees were common on tropical islands, and their bark was very flexible, usable for weaving shoes and clothes. Watch out for the bushes on the ground. Scorpions and venomous snakes prefer shade, and bushes are their best hiding places, Ethan Blackwood warned, tapping the ground with a stick. Sophia Ashbourne was panicked. Women were terrified of snakes and insects, and she anxiously asked, "Why are you tapping around then? What if you attract snakes?" Snakes dislike vibrations. When they sense vibrations, they move away. Ethan Blackwood wiped sweat from his brow, helplessly saying, "Miss Ashbourne, stop asking questions. If you keep talking, we'll die of thirst." What's so great about you, Humph? Sophia Ashbourne rolled her eyes at Ethan Blackwood's retreating back, wrinkling her delicate nose. Did being knowledgeable make him so proud? The temperature in the rainforest was higher than outside, and it was very stuffy. Ethan Blackwood's lips were cracked, and his stomach growled with hunger. The young lady behind him was in the same predicament. "There's water." Suddenly, Ethan Blackwood exclaimed with joy. Sophia Ashbourne's dim eyes lit up, but there was no water source around. Then she saw Ethan Blackwood grab a gray vine and pull it down forcefully. Her heart skipped a beat. Had this guy suffered too much mental stress and gone mad? But then, she was surprised to see that clean water was flowing from the broken vine. Although it wasn't much water, it was enough to save someone on the verge of dehydration. This palm tree is called a water vine. When its root is broken, pure water flows out, Ethan Blackwood said after drinking his fill, and he broke off 2 water vines for Sophia Ashbourne. Sophia Ashbourne tucked her hair behind her ear. Despite their precarious situation, the young lady's composure remained intact. She opened her lips slightly, preparing to sip the water gracefully. "Wait a moment." Ethan Blackwood quickly stopped her. "Tilt your head back and let the water drip into your mouth." The water in the water vine was drinkable, but the vine contained a mild toxin. If it came into contact with the lips, they would swell and become numb. Sophia Ashbourne, though puzzled, didn't ask why this time, fearing Ethan Blackwood would look down on her again. She tilted her head back, opened her mouth, and replenished her fluids in a less graceful manner. After drinking plenty of water, her thirst was quenched, but her stomach was still hungry. Ethan Blackwood was about to venture deeper when he suddenly heard Sophia Ashbourne scream. "Ethan! Ethan Blackwood, look there." She pointed with her delicate hand, trembling. Ethan Blackwood followed her gaze and saw a skeleton lying there. Clearly, this was an explorer who had met his demise here. "Be careful, there are black bears here." Ethan Blackwood took a deep breath. He noticed bear claw marks on the trunk nearby. Black bears killed fewer people than brown bears, but black bears tracked humans and treated them as prey. Moreover, black bears were extremely territorial. However, Ethan Blackwood didn't retreat. Instead, he walked towards the skeleton. Since the person was an explorer, they would have equipment. Even if they had been dead for a long time, some of it would surely be useful. In the wilderness, having an extra piece of equipment meant a higher chance of survival. Amazing. When Ethan Blackwood saw the Nepalese army knife next to the explorer's skeleton, his eyes gleamed with excitement. He had watched many wilderness survival videos and knew how important a knife was in the wild. Building a shelter without a knife took nearly 20 days, but with a knife, it only took 3 hours. Moreover, the Nepalese army knife was the most mechanically sound knife in the world. This was a huge find. Ethan Blackwood carefully put the army knife away, as if he had found a treasure. What made Ethan Blackwood even more excited was that there was also a first aid kit nearby. Opening the kit, he found most of the medicines had expired. However, there was a box of antibiotics with 3 months left before expiration. Ethan Blackwood was thrilled. In the wild, antibiotics were life-saving medicine. Without antibiotics, even a common cold could be fatal. Near the skeleton was a military canteen. This was also a good item, and Ethan Blackwood quickly collected it. Finally, in the explorer's inner pocket, Ethan Blackwood found a passport and a photo of his family. "Brother, if I have the chance to leave alive, I will definitely inform your family of your fate," Ethan Blackwood said solemnly, rustling. "Ethan Blackwood, listen, what's that sound?" At this moment, a rustling of leaves came from ahead. Accompanying it were heavy footsteps. Ethan Blackwood's heart sank and he looked up sharply. A black bear. Its dark silhouette had already appeared in his sight, its giant paws pounding against the tree trunk. Leaves rained down. It opened its massive maw, revealing a mouthful of ferocious fangs, with remnants of flesh and blood clinging to them. Sophia Ashbourne's heart was pounding rapidly, and she instinctively prepared to flee. "Don't move! Shout loudly with me." "Roar!" Ethan Blackwood quickly grabbed Sophia Ashbourne and started shouting. Sophia Ashbourne, beside herself with panic, instinctively did as Ethan Blackwood said. "Black bears run at 48 kilometers per hour. We can't outrun it. We can only shout loudly, making it think we are numerous, and then it won't dare to attack us," Ethan Blackwood explained while shouting. "What if it insists on attacking us?" Sophia Ashbourne's voice trembled with tears. "Trust me. Follow my rhythm, stare directly at the black bear, and back away slowly out of its territory. Absolutely do not turn your back and run." Ethan Blackwood's heart was pounding fiercely as he held the army knife, pointing it at the black bear's eyes. If it dared to pounce, the only thing Ethan Blackwood could do was stab its eyes with the knife. But even then, his survival rate would be less than 10%. As soon as the black bear made a move, he would be in extreme danger. Fortunately, this black bear seemed to have just finished eating and, coupled with Ethan Blackwood's shouts and withdrawal from its territory, did not pursue them. "Who?" "Ethan Blackwood, you scoundrel, knowing there were bears around, why didn't you hurry us away?" Sophia Ashbourne patted her chest as if she had narrowly escaped death, glaring at Ethan Blackwood with eyes full of malice. All the water she had managed to drink earlier had turned into cold sweat in that moment. Relying solely on the resources of the sea beach, we cannot survive long-term. To last until rescue arrives, we must explore deeper into the jungle. Ethan Blackwood shrugged. It was a matter of survival. If he didn't find enough resources, even if they weren't eaten by the black bear today, they wouldn't survive long on this deserted island. Sophia Ashbourne fell silent. She knew the reasoning behind his words, but any other girl would have acted no better than she had. As a pampered young lady, experiencing a shipwreck and becoming stranded on a desert island, adapting to the wilderness survival environment was not easy. "Is the sun about to set?" Sophia Ashbourne asked, noticing the sky gradually darkening, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Ethan Blackwood extended his arm, joined his 4 fingers together, and pointed his index finger at the lower edge of the sun. He noticed that the lower edge of the sun was still the width of 3 fingers away from the horizon. This was a method to predict sunset time, with 1 finger representing 15 minutes. "There are 45 minutes until sunset," Ethan Blackwood said, and he didn't linger. The jungle at night was 100 times more dangerous than during the day. Plus, after being hungry all day, they still needed to search for food on the beach. Returning to the beach, Ethan Blackwood pointed to a plant with oval leaves and instructed, "Miss Ashbourne, help me pick the leaves. These oval-shaped ones, the fresher, the better." "Who are you ordering around, pervert?" After the jungle adventure, Sophia Ashbourne didn't hate Ethan Blackwood as much, but the peeping incident still lingered in her mind, making her truly dislike him. "If you want to fill your stomach, then do as I say." Ethan Blackwood was too lazy to explain. He found a piece of yucca wood to use as a hearth base and began to shave it with his army knife. Gurgle, gurgle. Sophia Ashbourne, who had been hungry all day, glared fiercely at Ethan Blackwood. She gritted her teeth and stomped her foot, reluctantly starting to pick the small oval leaves. Could these small leaves fill their stomachs? Sophia Ashbourne was highly skeptical. Chapter 3. Sophia Ashbourne heavily discouraged. Sophia Ashbourne's stomach growled, and her steps were heavy, but she still carefully selected fresh oval leaves, diligently completing the task assigned by Ethan Blackwood. Although he was annoying, Sophia Ashbourne, with her strong self-esteem, didn't want to be a burden. After picking a large bunch of fresh oval leaves, Sophia Ashbourne, extremely hungry, was almost exhausted. However, unable to suppress her curiosity, she casually asked, "What do these leaves have to do with filling our stomachs? Do we eat them directly?" Sophia Ashbourne preferred to gain knowledge herself rather than rely on others. In such a wilderness, the saying, "knowledge changes destiny," was felt more directly. "These are for the fish." Ethan Blackwood calculated the time of low tide, found a clear shallow area, crushed the fresh oval leaves, and placed them in a pit in the shallow area, explaining. "These leaves release a toxin called rotenone. Fish that absorb the toxin become paralyzed, but the human body can break down this toxin and will not be harmed." Sophia Ashbourne was skeptical, but as the tide gradually receded, she saw with her own eyes that the pit in the shallow area indeed contained several motionless fish. A total of 6 fish, though not large, were enough to fill their stomachs. Sophia Ashbourne's eyes glistened, and her gaze towards Ethan Blackwood changed. This guy, though an annoying pervert, was simply a walking encyclopedia of wilderness survival. "Are you going to make fire by friction next?" Ethan Blackwood nodded. He could eat raw fish himself, but this pampered young lady certainly couldn't swallow it. Moreover, it was getting dark, and a bonfire was necessary. "I know this." Sophia Ashbourne lifted her fair chin, like a proud swan, finally having something she could do. Making fire by friction wasn't that simple. Just use a wooden stick and drill it on the base. Ethan Blackwood smiled. Human civilization was born from a small spark and took millions of years to reach the top of the food chain. But from using natural fire to artificial fire making, humans experienced 1.5 million years of struggle. If making fire by friction were truly that easy, why would it have taken so long to figure out? "What's that expression? Are you looking down on me? I'll make fire for you right now," Sophia Ashbourne said, seeing Ethan Blackwood smile without speaking, and felt indignant. She casually picked up a stick from the ground and aimed it at a wooden block, starting to rub. But even though she was sweating profusely, she couldn't even produce a single spark. Her jade-like hands ached, but she continued to rub the stick mechanically, refusing to admit defeat. "If you keep rubbing, we'll starve to death. Watch carefully, this is the correct way to make fire." The selection of fire-making materials alone was a vast subject. Ethan Blackwood chose yucca wood for the base. This wood was light and soft, dry, and had a very low ignition point, making it the best base for making fire. Below the base, he spread a layer of dry pine needles and dry grass, then positioned one end of the wooden stick into a groove on the base, and Ethan Blackwood began to make fire. He looked up and saw Sophia Ashbourne curled up with her legs drawn to her chest, her slender arms wrapped around her knees, her chin resting on her knees, her almond-shaped eyes filled with dejection. Clearly, the failure to make fire by friction had dealt her a significant blow. "Miss Ashbourne, hurry over and help me hold the base steady. Without your help, this fire won't start," Ethan Blackwood shouted. Sophia Ashbourne's dejected eyes immediately lit up. HMPH, as expected, things couldn't be done without her. Her dejection vanished instantly, and Sophia Ashbourne proudly lifted her head, pressing down on the base with both hands, using all her strength. Ethan Blackwood found it amusing. If not for seeing her so disheartened, looking utterly lifeless, he wouldn't have bothered making her help. He could have simply stepped on it with his own feet. Ethan Blackwood rubbed the wooden stick rhythmically. Before long, smoke began to rise from the groove, and the surrounding wood shavings started to turn black. At this opportune moment, Ethan Blackwood stopped rubbing and immediately poured the black sawdust onto the dry pine needles. A flame instantly erupted. He speared a fish with a wooden stick and slowly roasted it over the fire. The aroma wafted out along with a sizzling sound. About 10 minutes later, the fish was cooked. "It's ready to eat." Ethan Blackwood, dizzy from hunger, grabbed a skewer of grilled fish and stuffed it into his mouth. Although there were no seasonings, he ate it with great relish. Food used to save one's life was always so precious. Ethan Blackwood even licked the oil from his thumb, unwilling to waste even a drop. Sophia Ashbourne opened her mouth slightly and bit off a piece of fish. Delicious. At this moment, an indescribable sense of satisfaction surged through her heart. As a pampered young lady, what delicacies hadn't she tasted? No matter how exquisite the dish, with just one word from her, a starred chef would prepare it and deliver it to her table. But this fish was something she had made through her own efforts. Although its appearance and taste weren't perfect, it was the best food Sophia Ashbourne had ever tasted. Just then, a sound came from the jungle behind them. Sophia Ashbourne's small face stiffened, and she nervously ran behind Ethan Blackwood. The black bear from before had left her with a psychological shadow. Ethan Blackwood also became extremely vigilant, gripping his army knife tightly. However, they saw two disheveled people emerge from the rainforest. They were Isabel Hawthorne and Lucas Everhart. "Jaya, you're alive." Sophia Ashbourne was overjoyed. She saw that Isabel Hawthorne's suspender pants were tattered, and her playful twin pigtails had also come loose, making her look very disheveled. "Sophia! Boo-hoo, I was so scared, I thought I'd never see you again." The two girls hugged each other, their tears rolling down their pretty faces like pearls from a broken string. "I'm starving, and there's grilled fish to eat." Lucas Everhart's eyes lit up upon seeing the grilled fish. He rushed forward, intending to grab it and eat. However, Ethan Blackwood took a few steps back with the grilled fish, looking at Lucas Everhart with hostility. On a deserted island, food meant life. "Ethan Blackwood, what the hell do you mean? Give me the grilled fish," Lucas Everhart shouted, driven by extreme hunger. Ethan Blackwood pursed his lips and indifferently said, "This is my grilled fish. If you want to eat, go catch it yourself." "You little brat, don't push me to do something." Lucas Everhart immediately became aggressive. "Try me." Ethan Blackwood drew his army knife, his expression stern, ready to strike at any moment. Lucas Everhart's heart skipped a beat and he swallowed. Damn it, where did this kid get a knife? But he still blustered, "Useless trash, hurry up and give us the food. If you keep hoarding it, I'll kick you out." "If it weren't for us, How could you survive? Ethan Blackwood, you pervert, you stingy miser. Why are you eating alone? Are you going to let us starve to death? It's just a few fish. We're all classmates, why the need for a knife? I've never seen someone so petty, Isabel Hawthorne said angrily. Ethan Blackwood, give the grilled fish to Jayagia quickly. Sophia Ashbourne called out to Ethan Blackwood. She didn't care about Lucas Everhart, but she couldn't ignore her best friend Isabel Hawthorne's situation. Fine, Miss Ashbourne, we caught 6 grilled fish in total, so let's divide them equally. You've already eaten one, and there are 2 left for you. From now on, we part ways. Ethan Blackwood said, took his remaining 2 grilled fish and left the bonfire without looking back. He found it amusing. Ultimately, she was still a pampered young lady, completely lacking a survival instinct. Did she really think being stranded on a desert island was child's play? Here, food meant life. No matter how compassionate Ethan Blackwood was, he couldn't give away his life to others. HMPH, leaving is leaving, what's so great about it, pervert? Sophia Ashbourne gritted her teeth, clenched her cherry lips, and swung her small fists, huffing angrily. But as she watched Ethan Blackwood's receding figure, she suddenly felt a sense of loss. This pervert was gone, shouldn't she be happy? Why did she feel so lost? Chapter 4. Natural mosquito repellent building shelter. Now it's better, Sophia. With this pervert gone, we're safe. Otherwise, I'd still be worried about him doing something bad at night. There are 3 of us here, and he's only one person. If we can't survive, don't come begging us. Isabel Hawthorne said happily after Ethan Blackwood left. Even if you beg us, it's no use unless you kneel down and kowtow to me. Lucas Everhart snorted, grabbed a grilled fish, and took a bite. He immediately spat it out. This is so damn disgusting. If I were at home, even my dog wouldn't eat this kind of fish. Lucas Everhart complained. But suddenly, he felt a chilling gaze from beside him. Lucas Everhart shivered and glanced sideways, only to see Sophia Ashbourne looking at him with a cold expression. Sophia, you don't like this grilled fish either, right? That trash's cooking is disgusting. Don't worry, tomorrow I'll go catch delicious seafood for you. I promise to make your taste buds dance with joy. Lucas Everhart said, patting his chest solicitously. Sophia Ashbourne gave Lucas Everhart a cold glance and didn't say a word to him. She walked away and picked up a water vine, tilting her head back to drink. Wow, Sophia, you're amazing. You can even find ways to get fresh water. Isabel Hawthorne's eyes were filled with admiration. Ha, it's just right, I'm thirsty too. Lucas Everhart acted as if he was part of the group and grabbed a water vine to drink. However, he found the water dripping too slowly, so he directly suckled it into his mouth. Ah, my mouth hurts so much, it's numb. In less than a minute, Lucas Everhart cried out in pain. His mouth was red and swollen, looking like a sausage mouth, completely numb. Sophia Ashbourne realized why Ethan Blackwood had told her to tilt her head back when drinking. Immediately after, she saw a ball of fire glowing about 100 meters away. Sophia Ashbourne's thoughts swirled. She sighed, deciding not to think about Ethan Blackwood anymore. But as she lowered her eyes, the first thing she saw was Ethan Blackwood's shoes on her delicate feet. Ethan Blackwood started a bonfire in a cave, and the unpleasantness of the past had already been cast aside. In the wilderness, indecisiveness was a great taboo. The only thought that could exist in one's mind was to survive. The Milky Way hung high in the night sky, indicating a clear day. While there was no need to worry about rain, the mosquitoes were a considerable nuisance. Tropical rainforest mosquitoes were ferocious. Being bitten and losing blood was one thing, but contracting malaria would be dangerous. There was no artemisinin here. In severe cases, it could be fatal. Even in the mildest outcome, vomiting and diarrhea would occur, with a high chance of dying from dehydration. Ethan Blackwood went outside the jungle, where there were many palm trees. After searching for a while, Ethan Blackwood locked onto his target, termite nests on the palm trees. Termite nests contained a lot of termite droppings. Burning the nests with their droppings would produce a fragrant smoke that could drive away mosquitoes. It was essentially natural mosquito repellent. After stealing 3 termite nests, Ethan Blackwood returned to the bonfire, satisfied. Lighting the termite nests immediately produced smoke, and the buzzing mosquitoes around were quickly driven away. Exhausted from a day's work, Ethan Blackwood quickly fell asleep in the cave. However, things weren't as comfortable on the other side. Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne, with their delicate skin, couldn't withstand the mosquito bites at all. Lucas Everhart, on the other hand, wrapped himself tightly in his clothes, not daring to expose even his fingernails. "Lucas Everhart, give us your clothes," Isabel Hawthorne said imperiously, unable to bear the mosquito bites any longer. "Huh, why?" Lucas Everhart was dumbfounded. "Heh, you like Sophia, don't you?" "What, you're not even willing to shield her from mosquitoes? If you don't have this much sincerity, you're dreaming of pursuing Sophia." Isabel Hawthorne gave him a scornful look. Lucas Everhart's mind was in turmoil. In this environment, if he took off his clothes, wouldn't he be bitten into a pig's head? But if he performed well, perhaps he could win Sophia Ashbourne's heart. Immediately, Lucas Everhart made up his mind. Gritting his teeth, he generously took off his outer jacket and pretended to be nonchalant, shaking his hair. "Heh, little mosquitoes, how laughable, how can young Master Lucas Everhart, be afraid?" Before he could finish speaking, 3 bumps had already appeared on his forehead. But for the sake of his heroic image, Lucas Everhart didn't even frown. "Wow, so handsome." Isabel Hawthorne fawned over him happily, since praising him cost nothing. Wrapping herself and Sophia Ashbourne in clothes, all the mosquitoes immediately flew towards Lucas Everhart. That night, Lucas Everhart was almost drained by the mosquitoes. Ethan Blackwood slept soundly, only getting up twice in the middle of the night to add firewood. In the wilderness, campfires were the most important thing. They could deter poisonous insects and wild beasts. Upon waking, Ethan Blackwood immediately grabbed his knife and went into the jungle. He had planned before sleeping to build a shelter today. Sleeping in the cave every day wouldn't do. If it rained and couldn't block the wind, it would be extremely cold. Ethan Blackwood first cut down a bamboo, then found 2 dwarf trees growing close together, and placed the bamboo across them, tying it tightly with fiber ropes made from Barringtonia racemosa. This completed the horizontal beams of the shelter. Next, he used strips of wood, placed on both sides of the beams and tied securely, quickly forming the outline of a triangular roof. However, there were too many gaps. To block the rain, palm leaves would need to be covered on both sides. Moreover, it wasn't enough to simply cover them directly. Dried palm leaves would curl up. Thus, they had to be woven first. Weaving the roof was simple. Ethan Blackwood quickly wove a palm leaf, with the dark side facing outwards and the light side inwards. Each side required 5 leaves to cover completely, a total of 10 palm leaves. It took half an hour to complete all of them, and the construction of the shelter was only 1 step away. That was to lay the floor. Of course, there were no floor tiles here. Dry pine needles would have to suffice. At night, the temperature was low, and when sleeping, if one was in direct contact with the ground, 3/4 of the body's heat would be lost through the ground. After filling the inside of the triangular roof with dry pine needles, the shelter was finally completed. Looking at the shelter he had built, Ethan Blackwood let out a sigh of relief. Now he wouldn't have to worry about rain. "Sophia, look, that guy has even built a shelter." Isabel Hawthorne pouted unhappily, then looked at Lucas Everhart, the pig's head. "HMPH, why don't you build one too? You're making Sophia and me sleep in the cave like vagrants." Ethan Blackwood is an idiot. There are so many natural caves, yet he's wasting his energy building a shelter. "What a fool," Lucas Everhart said disdainfully. "You're so capable, then why couldn't you find any food all morning? Didn't you say yesterday you'd let us feast? We've also finished the water vines, and now we don't even have fresh water." Isabel Hawthorne was hungry and thirsty, glaring at Lucas Everhart. Yesterday, she had mocked Ethan Blackwood, saying he wouldn't survive after leaving. But now, it seemed she was the one who was about to die. Lucas Everhart's face turned red with shame. He blamed, "It's not my fault." The fish Ethan Blackwood roasted was too disgusting, so I didn't eat much. Now I'm weak and couldn't catch any fish. If I had eaten, I'm sure I could have caught 100 fish. Sophia Ashbourne didn't even want to talk to him anymore. This guy lacked basic logic. If you don't catch fish, how can you eat? Do you eat air? She remembered how he used to dress up in school, exuding a refined and gentlemanly demeanor. Only in the wilderness did she realize he was just a gilded toilet. Except for his family's vast wealth, he was useless. But what was the use of money now? Would swiping a card at the sea make fish jump out? Sophia, I'm so hungry. How did you catch fish yesterday? Isabel Hawthorne tugged at Sophia Ashbourne's skirt, looking aggrieved. I don't know either. Ethan Blackwood caught them. Sophia Ashbourne felt a bit awkward. Although she knew the steps, she didn't know the timing of the low tide. Only shortly before low tide could she put the crushed oval leaves into the pit to poison the fish. Only now did she realize that she hadn't done anything yesterday. She had survived solely thanks to Ethan Blackwood. Looking out at the coastline, she saw Ethan Blackwood about 100 meters away, squatting on the beach, carefully sorting through clam shells. What was he doing? Sophia Ashbourne was filled with confusion. Chapter 5. Lucas Everhart Goes Mad. Ever since arriving on the island, Sophia Ashbourne couldn't understand any of Ethan Blackwood's actions. But after yesterday's events, she at least understood one thing. Everything Ethan Blackwood did had a reason. Realizing this, Sophia Ashbourne immediately called Isabel Hawthorne, who was looking bewildered, and they also went to the beach to collect clam shells. She had learned her lesson. Even if she didn't know what they were for, doing what Ethan Blackwood did was the right thing to do. Look at that idiot Ethan Blackwood. He probably can't catch fish either, right? He's picking up clam shells to eat, and he only picks up empty shells, haha, what a fool. Lucas Everhart laughed loudly. Who are you calling garbage? We're collecting clam shells too, Isabel Hawthorne retorted angrily. Lucas Everhart's throat felt as if it were clogged with something, and his expression wavered. He had been a respected young master before, but here, no one paid attention to him. Even Isabel Hawthorne could yell and insult him arbitrarily. Deep resentment began to brew within him. Hey, Ethan Blackwood, what are you collecting these clam shells for? Isabel Hawthorne asked, puzzled. She was already low on energy. Why waste her strength picking up clam shells? She wasn't as shy as Sophia Ashbourne and had no intention of parting ways. She ran directly to Ethan Blackwood to ask. Collecting rainwater, it's going to rain soon. Ethan Blackwood didn't hide anything. As long as they didn't come to steal his resources, revealing a few survival tips wouldn't hurt. On an island, the most important thing was always fresh water. A person could survive for 3 weeks without food, but without water, they couldn't even last 3 days. Ethan Blackwood was unsure of the freshwater resources within the jungle and didn't dare to explore easily. The safest way to obtain fresh water was to collect rainwater. I think you're delirious. With such a big sun, how could it possibly rain? You're really sick, making me and Sophia's sister waste our energy picking up shells. Isabel Hawthorne's expression immediately turned sour. Ethan Blackwood ignored her. Although the sky was clear at that moment, the clouds were stretched across the sky like clasped fingers. This was a phenomenon of cirrus uncinus clouds, indicating an increase in moisture and a decrease in atmospheric pressure before rain, a sign of impending rain. Rumble. Indeed, as soon as Isabel Hawthorne finished speaking, a muffled thunderclap sounded from above the clouds. Wow, you're amazing, Ethan Blackwood. You even peeked out when the sky is going to rain. Isabel Hawthorne's gloom vanished, and she began collecting clam shells with renewed vigor. Her throat was already dry as smoke, and she was eager to drink water. Ethan Blackwood shot her an exasperated glance. What a poisonous tongue. The weather at sea could change in an instant. A heavy rain arrived as quickly as it appeared. He arranged the clam shells, and once they were filled with rainwater, he poured the rainwater into the military canteen he had obtained earlier. If it wasn't stored this way, the rainwater would quickly evaporate once the sun came out. The canteen had a capacity of 3 liters, enough for one person's daily needs, which Ethan Blackwood had prepared for future exploration of the jungle. To store more rainwater, Ethan Blackwood had also cut many bamboo sections for storage. As for the other three, they could only drink as much as possible during the rain. Once the rain stopped, they would still face the danger of dehydration. As it was nearing low tide, Ethan Blackwood calculated the time again, but only managed to catch 2 fish. Poisoning fish with rotenone was inherently unstable. Ethan Blackwood knew that to survive long-term, he couldn't rely solely on this method of obtaining food. "Sister Sophia, I'm so cold and hungry. Lucas Everhart blames you. If you could have also built a shelter, our bonfire wouldn't have gone out," Isabel Hawthorne said aggrievedly, returning to Sophia Ashbourne's side. Although she had drunk her fill of water, the rainwater had extinguished the bonfire. Seeing Ethan Blackwood comfortably eating grilled fish in his shelter, she felt even more disheartened. Lucas Everhart's face darkened further. He would have liked to build a shelter, but was it that easy? Without tools, he couldn't even cut a single bamboo. Ethan Blackwood is a fool. There are so many natural caves, yet he's wasting his energy building a shelter. What a dumbass. Let's team up, the 3 of us, and teach him a lesson, then snatch his army knife. He could see that Ethan Blackwood's significant advantage, apart from his rich wilderness experience, was this wilderness artifact. "Heh heh," Isabel Hawthorne said with a forced smile. "Let me remind you, Sophia's sister and I have no combat ability." Lucas Everhart was taken aback. Then it would be just him alone. How could he possibly defeat Ethan Blackwood, who had a weapon? However, he suddenly thought of something, and his gaze swept over Sophia Ashbourne, a sinister glint flashing in the depths of his eyes. "Jaya, I collected some sea snails, let's eat them," Sophia Ashbourne called out, holding over 20 collected sea snails. How do we eat them?" Isabel Hawthorne was stunned. Not to mention that sea snails had very little meat, and with the bonfire extinguished, they couldn't be cooked. "Smash the sea snail shells and eat them raw," Sophia Ashbourne gritted her teeth and said. Isabel Hawthorne completely broke down. She had eaten plenty of raw food, but who ate sea snails raw? The thought alone was disgusting. What if there were parasites? "I'll go ask Ethan Blackwood for grilled fish." "I don't believe he'll just watch us starve to death." Isabel Hawthorne had selectively forgotten. She had completely disregarded her previous taunts about Ethan Blackwood not surviving after leaving. "HMPH, without him, can I, Sophia Ashbourne, not survive?" Sophia Ashbourne was stubbornly defiant. Although she was a girl, her competitive spirit was no less than that of a man. Ethan Blackwood had said to part ways. How could she go begging for food with such thick skin? Saying that, she set an example, smashed a sea snail with a stone, pinched her delicate nose, closed her eyes, and put the snail meat into her mouth, forcing herself to swallow despite her nausea, even watering her eyes. Night soon fell, and the pouring rain showed no signs of stopping. The temperature dropped lower and lower, and the sea breeze was bone-chillingly cold. Inside the cave, Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne huddled together in a corner, but they still couldn't withstand the cold and trembled like 2 small quail. But soon, Isabel Hawthorne realized something was wrong. She found that Sophia Ashbourne had fainted, and her body had become very hot. "Sister Sophia, wake up! Lucas Everhart, Sister Sophia has a fever, quickly think of something." Isabel Hawthorne, though inexperienced, knew that fever was very dangerous in such an environment. She was immediately anxious, tears falling. "Fainted? That's perfect for me." Lucas Everhart suddenly showed a cruel expression, grinning sinisterly as he lunged forward. Isabel Hawthorne was completely stunned. She hadn't expected Lucas Everhart to change his personality so drastically and attempt to take advantage of Sophia Ashbourne. "Let me tell you, Ethan Blackwood was framed by me, so what? Sophia Ashbourne, this little lady, will be mine soon, ha ha ha." Lucas Everhart's bloodshot eyes were filled with madness. The suppression of the past 2 days had driven him insane. Rather than starving to death on this deserted island, before dying, he wanted to satisfy his inner darkness. "Don't bully Sister Sophia." Isabel Hawthorne mustered her last bit of strength and bit Lucas Everhart's arm. Taking advantage of his pain, she picked up Sophia Ashbourne and ran towards the outside of the cave. However, the already weak Isabel Hawthorne, carrying Sophia Ashbourne, ran even slower. Her legs gave out and she fell onto the beach. "Isabel Hawthorne, you little bitch, you've been mocking me these past 2 days, and I won't let you go today. I'll see where you run." Lucas Everhart rushed forward, kicked Isabel Hawthorne, and the delicate Isabel Hawthorne let out a pained groan, curling up like a shrimp. He was already a vindictive person. In civilized society, he could still pretend to be a good person, but in this lawless wilderness, after just 1 day, his true nature was fully exposed. Isabel Hawthorne, almost in despair, cried tears that mingled with the rainwater. She never expected the desert island to be so cruel. After only 1 day, she had met such a fate. For a moment, her heart was filled with regret. If she hadn't driven Ethan Blackwood away yesterday, perhaps none of this would have happened. Unfortunately, it was too late for regrets. In the wilderness, without the ability to survive, but with the talent to bully girls. But at this moment, a chilling voice sounded. It reached Isabel Hawthorne's ears like heavenly music. "Ethan Blackwood." She looked up and saw Ethan Blackwood standing amidst the raging storm. Illuminated by the thunder and lightning, rainwater trickled down his stern profile. 6. Ethan Blackwood, a gentleman. Ethan Blackwood, wielding a military knife, had a cold glint in his eyes. He charged forward and with a flying kick, immediately sent Lucas Everhart crashing to the ground. Lucas Everhart, in pain and scrambling back up, attempted to fight Ethan Blackwood. However, a flash of lightning illuminated Ethan Blackwood's glinting military knife, sobering Lucas up considerably. "Ethan Blackwood, you little bastard. Just you wait, I'll definitely take your life." Lucas Everhart bluffed, disappearing into the night like a stray dog. Ethan Blackwood chose not to pursue. His exploration of the deserted island was still insufficient, and proceeding rashly in the dark might lead to danger. He shouldered the unconscious Sophia Ashbourne and helped Isabel Hawthorne to her feet before returning to their triangular tent. "Sophia is unconscious. Ethan, what do we do?" Isabel Hawthorne asked, still trembling and sobbing. "Heth, weren't you quite fierce yesterday? Now you know who's going to die." Ethan Blackwood sneered. "This girl used to be so arrogant. And now she's well behaved." Sophia Ashbourne's eyes were half closed, her delicate brows furrowed, and a flush of fever spread across her pale face. He placed his hand on her forehead and felt a high temperature. It was clear she had a fever from the cold and rain. This situation in the wilderness was extremely dangerous. Fortunately, Ethan Blackwood had a box of antibiotics. He gave Sophia Ashbourne 1 pill and then proceeded to remove her jacket. "What are you doing?" Isabel Hawthorne watched Ethan Blackwood in terror, quickly pulling Sophia Ashbourne away, as if startled by a deer. The actions of Lucas Everhart were still vivid in her memory. Ethan Blackwood was even more formidable than Lucas. Moreover, she had offended him before. The thought filled her with dread. Sophia Ashbourne wasn't even awake yet, and she was alone. How would she handle this? "You two are soaked to the bone. Your clothes need to be dried, or you'll lose too much body heat, which could be life-threatening," Ethan Blackwood said. He then walked to the tent entrance, stood guard, and began cleaning his knife with his back to them. "Don't worry. I won't peek." Isabel Hawthorne felt incredibly awkward. She hung up her and Sophia Ashbourne's clothes to dry, her gaze fixed on Ethan Blackwood the entire time, fearing he might suddenly turn around. However, until the clothes were dry and both girls were dressed, Ethan Blackwood never turned his head. He kept his eyes glued to his military knife, not even blinking. Isabel Hawthorne felt a pang of guilt, realizing she had once again judged a gentleman with an ignoble mind. Moreover, Lucas Everhart had personally admitted to framing Ethan Blackwood. "Ethan, I'm sorry. Sophia and I misunderstood you before. You're a true gentleman." Isabel Hawthorne said softly. Ethan Blackwood regretfully wiped a trickle of blood from his nose. Why did the clothes dry so quickly? He sighed helplessly and sheathed his gleaming military knife. Tomorrow. You'll come with me into the jungle to hunt. Here's a grilled fish. Eat it first and save the leftovers for Miss Sophistication. Ethan Blackwood declared without preamble and promptly fell asleep. Isabel Hawthorne was momentarily stunned. The jungle had seemed terrifying before. But thinking of going with Ethan Blackwood somehow gave her a strong sense of security. The next morning, Ethan Blackwood felt a stuffy heat and a slight difficulty breathing as he woke up from his slumber. Opening his groggy eyes, he saw the two girls sprawled out beside him. One of them even had a foot resting on his face, and her arm was covering his nose, nearly suffocating him. They occasionally smacked their lips in their sleep. Ethan Blackwood glanced at the oily sheen around their mouths, realizing they had eaten something. Sophia Ashbourne must have recovered. Without waking the two girls, Ethan Blackwood slipped out of the tent. He found a stalk of horsetail, broke off the stem, crushed the burnt charcoal into black powder, and applied it to THE Chinese letter, beginning to clean his teeth. At that moment, Sophia Ashbourne emerged from the tent. Ethan, thank you for saving me and Isabel last night. I was wrong to have misjudged you before. I'm sorry, what are you doing? Sophia Ashbourne was startled. Ethan Blackwood's mouth was full of charcoal residue, making it look dirty and black. Brushing my teeth. The HORSETIL Chinese letter can remove plaque from teeth, and the charcoal can absorb dirt. Together, they make a simple toothbrush and toothpaste. Ethan Blackwood said, spitting out the charcoal residue after rinsing with water. His teeth were indeed brilliantly white. I'll try it too. Despite her initial aversion to the charcoal residue, Sophia Ashbourne decided to brush her teeth. Back home, she bathed morning and night. After 2 days here without washing her face or rinsing her mouth, it was torture. After rinsing her mouth using Ethan Blackwood's method, Sophia Ashbourne indeed felt much more comfortable. Isabel Hawthorne, the last to wake up, also followed suit. Next, we need to explore deeper into the rainforest. Once we enter the rainforest, both of you must follow my instructions, understand? Okay, Ethan, Sophia and I are relying on you. Isabel Hawthorne nodded vigorously, readily accepting Ethan Blackwood's request. After yesterday's events, she had gained self-awareness, knowing she was a novice, and that clinging to him was key to survival. Stupid Isabel, you have no backbone. No loyalty, HMPH. Sophia Ashbourne shot a grumpy glare at Isabel Hawthorne. Although she knew Ethan Blackwood's demands were for everyone's safety, her proud nature rebelled against taking orders from others. Furthermore, Isabel Hawthorne used to be her obedient little sister, and now she seemed to be showing signs of betrayal. But Ethan, if we go into the rainforest under this intense sun, we'll be dried out. Look, after just 1 day. I've already gotten so much darker. If only we had sunscreen. Isabel Hawthorne stretched out her arm, revealing several sunburnt patches. Sophia Ashbourne also looked troubled. No girl dislikes beauty, and she, who usually paid great attention to her skincare, was also suffering from exposure to the sun. But this is a deserted island. How could there be sunscreen? Who says there isn't? Ethan Blackwood pursed his lips and pointed upwards. Isn't that above us? The two girls followed his gaze, seeing coconuts on the coconut trees. What does coconut have to do with sunscreen? You're a man, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand skincare products. On other matters, Sophia Ashbourne wouldn't dare to argue, but when it came to cosmetics, she believed she had the final say. At least, among the dozens of sunscreens she had used, none had ever contained coconut extracts. Ethan Blackwood didn't waste words. He tied a fiber rope made from hibiscus around his ankles and began climbing the tree to pick coconuts. Hey, be careful, you won't fall. Will you? Don't worry, if you die, I'll help you collect the body. Ethan Blackwood was exasperated. One was a jinx, the other was sharp-tongued. If he died, could these two survive on this deserted island? The coconut trees were 30 meters tall, with straight trunks and no branches, making them difficult to climb. However, Ethan Blackwood tied the ropes around his ankles, which increased friction significantly during climbing, saving him a lot of effort. Ethan Blackwood moved nimbly and quickly reached the top of the tree. He cupped the coconut with his hands and gently twisted it left and right, causing a fresh coconut to fall. After picking 3 coconuts, Ethan Blackwood slowly descended the tree. The potassium in coconut water can replenish the potassium lost through sweating. And it also contains vitamin C and carbohydrates. Don't waste it. He cracked open the coconuts on a rock and handed one to each of the girls. He also drank deeply, the sweet coconut water refreshing his soul. After drinking, Ethan Blackwood cut the coconut shells in half, scooped out the flesh, and placed it all in one half shell. He then mashed the coconut flesh with his knife and squeezed out the oil. Applying coconut oil to your skin can prevent sunburn, Ethan Blackwood said, starting to apply it himself. He didn't care about getting tanned, but if he got sunburned, it could easily lead to infection, which would be dangerous. Therefore, the efficacy of coconut oil was quite useful. Sophia Ashbourne, still skeptical, held the coconut oil and warned, "Isabel and I are going to apply this oil, and you are not allowed to peek." HMPH. What do you think of Ethan Blackwood? Ethan Blackwood turned around sternly and then quickly took out his gleaming military knife, staring intently at its surface without blinking. HMPH. It works quite well. I didn't expect you, a man, to also understand skincare. Sophia Ashbourne's aloofness returned. Although satisfied in her heart, she was reluctant to admit it openly. Ethan. Let's go hunt in the jungle, Isabel Hawthorne called out joyfully, with the sunscreen. Her mood had improved considerably. How can you hunt with nothing but your bare hands? Prepare your weapons first. Ethan Blackwood carefully selected 2 sharp, flat large shells, tied a short bamboo with a rope in the middle, and then split one end. He fitted the shells into the split and tied them tightly at the top with a rope. Thus, a simple disc knife was made. We have to work too. Isabel Hawthorne blinked blankly. She thought she just had to cling to him and do nothing. Ethan Blackwood and Sophia Ashbourne both rolled their eyes at her. Isabel Hawthorne stuck out her tongue. Just then, a sound came from not far away. Brother Sheng, the 2 little ladies are over there, and that bastard Ethan Blackwood too. Brother Sheng. You must help me kill him. Lucas Everhart's venomous voice was heard. 7. Desperate escape and rabbit hunt. Lucas Everhart's venomous voice echoed. And then he was seen leading a group of people over. These were all male classmates who had attended the party. Wow, it's classmates from the martial arts club. HMPH, Lucas Everhart. That scoundrel dared to bully me yesterday. My classmates will definitely teach him a lesson. Isabel Hawthorne said indignantly, but Sophia Ashbourne held her back tightly. Isabel, don't go there with him. These words sent a chill down Isabel Hawthorne's spine, and she immediately stopped. How could this be? However, the reality was, as Sophia Ashbourne had said, that Guan Sheng was Lucas Everhart's subordinate at school, but now it seems Lucas Everhart has become his subordinate. Ethan Blackwood's gaze fixed on the strong, bald man in the middle of the group. The strong, bald man, Guan Sheng, also stared at Ethan Blackwood. More precisely, his attention was focused on the 2 girls beside Ethan Blackwood. Little Lucas. Let Sophia Ashbourne have me. That's what you said, Guan Sheng said, patting Lucas Everhart's shoulder and sneering. As long as Brother Sheng helps me kill Ethan Blackwood, Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne will both be yours, Lucas Everhart said venomously, hating Ethan Blackwood to the bone. As for Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne, since he couldn't have them anyway, He didn't care what happened as long as Ethan Blackwood was killed. Good, ha ha ha. Little Lucas, I won't treat you unfairly. Guan Sheng was immensely pleased, seeing the former young master now bowing and scraping to him. And even giving up his beloved was an indescribable feeling. Back in school, as the president of the martial arts club, he could only be Lucas Everhart's subordinate and thug for money. But on this deserted island, the situation was completely different. Money was useless here, might made right. Moreover, these martial arts club students were originally his subordinates. He immediately became the emperor of the deserted island. With nearly 20 people, they all followed his lead and obeyed his every command. And last night, he happened to encounter the derelict Lucas Everhart, who told him everything that had happened. Guan Sheng was immediately tempted. On the deserted island, he already possessed supreme power. However, these classmates were all men, and Sophia Ashbourne was the most beautiful girl in the entire school. Isabel Hawthorne, though not as beautiful, was also charming and cute. To have such two women was something the former Guan Sheng didn't even dare to dream of. But now, the opportunity was right before him. Hey, Ethan Blackwood. You'd better be sensible and hand over the two girls. I can give you a quick death. Guan Sheng's eyes were fierce. When he competed, every move was aimed at crippling his opponents. In this lawless place, he was even more ruthless. Ethan Blackwood, what do we do? Can you beat them? Isabel Hawthorne asked nervously. Sophia Ashbourne was extremely tense, clutching Ethan Blackwood's collar tightly. Her heart filled with anxiety. Facing nearly 20 people, 1 against 2 fists was already difficult, let alone 40 fists. And all of them martial arts practitioners. Follow me into the rainforest. Ethan Blackwood remained absolutely calm. Fighting on the open beach would be suicide, but in the rainforest, Ethan Blackwood was confident that with his experience, he could maneuver against them. With that, Ethan Blackwood, carrying his water canteen, and the two girls, each holding a bamboo tube for water, rushed into the rainforest at top speed. Brothers, chase them. Guan Sheng saw the plump ducks he had caught wanting to fly away. How could he tolerate it? He immediately gave chase into the jungle. The rainforest interior was densely vegetated, with all sorts of tropical plants overlapping and intertwining. Compared to the outside, the visibility within the jungle was greatly reduced. Ethan Blackwood led the two girls into the jungle, with plants as far as his eyes could see. The noisy footsteps of their pursuers were getting closer and closer. If we run around randomly, we'll definitely be caught. What should we do? Isabel Hawthorne's face was solemn. The other party had a large number of people, and if they ran around randomly, they would eventually be surrounded. Their visibility is also very poor. As long as we keep running in a straight line, we'll be able to shake them off, Ethan Blackwood said. But there's no time to determine direction now. How do we maintain our course? Sophia Ashbourne knew about the sundial method, but it required waiting 15 minutes to take effect. Now was not the time to wait. Isabel Hawthorne, give me your watch, Ethan Blackwood called out, although unsure of the reason. Isabel Hawthorne did not hesitate and quickly handed over her Chanel wristwatch. Align the hour hand with the sun and the central point between it and 12 o'clock. The direction indicated is south. Follow me. Ethan Blackwood quickly identified the direction after referencing it. Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne exchanged glances. This was the first time Isabel Hawthorne had witnessed such a simple yet practical method of determining direction. Sophia Ashbourne was shocked for the second time. Before this, in her understanding, only a compass could determine direction. But in just 3 days, Ethan Blackwood had demonstrated 2 methods. Indeed, following the route chosen by Ethan Blackwood, the sounds of pursuit grew further and further away. They arrived at a clearing in the jungle, and Ethan Blackwood stopped. Continuous running would consume a lot of physical strength and water, exhausting even Ethan Blackwood. let alone the two girls. Therefore, Ethan Blackwood decided to stop and replenish their energy. Furthermore, in this pursuit, Ethan Blackwood had no intention of playing the prey indefinitely. And Guan Sheng and the others were not qualified to be the hunters chasing Ethan Blackwood. Ethan Blackwood already had a plan for counterattack in his mind. But before executing the plan, he had to fill his stomach first. With this thought, Ethan Blackwood began searching. The jungle was full of resources that could be utilized. To find food required extensive experience. Soon, Ethan Blackwood's eyes lit up, and he cut down a Soralia coralifolia plant by the root. It smells so bad. Ethan, did you fart? Instantly, both girls covered their noses. Ethan Blackwood shrugged nonchalantly, holding the smelly branch. If you want to fill your stomachs, you have to rely on this. Upon hearing this, the two girls almost burst into tears. Sophia, this branch smells so strong. How can we eat it? Ethan, I'd rather starve than eat this. Ethan Blackwood's lips twitched. Who told you to eat it? This type of branch has white spots on the tip of its leaves and thick stems with white shoots. When cut, it emits an ammonia-like smell. Rodents cannot stand this smell and will be driven out if it is placed near their burrows. After speaking, Ethan Blackwood crouched on the ground, sniffing continuously. Finally, he pinpointed a pile of weeds. This pile of weeds has a strong musk scent. There must be prey. You too. Take the cut end of the branch and put it into this pile of weeds. The musk scent is characteristic of rodent nests. Ethan Blackwood instructed, holding his breath and gripping his military knife. Isabel Hawthorne found the branch repulsive, but Sophia Ashbourne grabbed it. She had adopted the habit of believing that whatever Ethan Blackwood did must have a reason. Indeed, after placing the branch in the weeds for nearly 3 minutes, a large gray rabbit, unable to stand the strong odor any longer, jumped out of its burrow. At that very moment, Ethan Blackwood seized the opportunity, pounced, and killed it with one swift stroke. Wow, we have rabbit to eat. Isabel Hawthorne clapped her hands joyfully. Sophia Ashbourne now understood the principle without asking. She glanced at Ethan Blackwood quietly, and a trace of genuine admiration began to form in her heart. I made disc knives for both of you earlier. You two handle this rabbit, and I'll start the fire. Ethan Blackwood specifically stated. Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne exchanged glances. They were afraid to even step on a cockroach at home. And now they had to skin and gut a freshly killed rabbit. This was harder than taking the college entrance examination. Ethan Blackwood was doing this intentionally. Survival in the wilderness was already difficult, and now they had to face many enemies. If these two girls were not trained, relying solely on himself would ultimately lead to disaster. You both need to remember your identities. The three of us are a team. Not me leading 2 followers. People can only save themselves. If you don't temper yourselves, you won't be able to leave this deserted island alive. Ethan Blackwood sighed softly. Schooling them. If these 2 girls couldn't even handle a dead rabbit, what else could they do? They would only become burdens. In the face of life and death choices, Ethan Blackwood chose to bring these 2 along out of his conscience. But at the same time, they also had to become strong. 8. Counterattack from despair. After Ethan Blackwood spoke, the 2 girls fell silent for a moment. I understand. Isabel, I'll skin it, and you clean the insides, Sophia Ashbourne said with determination. She grabbed the disc knife and with a swift motion, cut open the rabbit's neck. The warm rabbit blood splattered onto her arm, causing Sophia Ashbourne's eyelashes to quiver slightly, but she still gritted her teeth and continued slicing. Isabel Hawthorne's brows were tightly knitted. At first, she couldn't even bear to look, but gradually her fear turned numb, and then it became commonplace, no longer eliciting much fear. Ethan Blackwood started the fire, watching the 2 girls with a sense of relief. If the 2 of them were simply decorative, then Ethan Blackwood would have to abandon them. Fortunately, they did not disappoint Ethan Blackwood. 15 minutes later, a prepared rabbit was placed before Ethan Blackwood. "Not bad at all," Ethan Blackwood said genuinely. "Sophia, Ethan is praising us," Isabel Hawthorne said, her hands covered in red but now without fear. She felt a sense of accomplishment. HMPH, who cares about his praise? Sophia Ashbourne rolled her eyes, feeling a sense of accomplishment in her heart. The rabbit meat was placed over the fire, with a sizzling sound. The juice and aroma wafted out, making one's mouth water. Although there were no seasonings, in the wild, having something to eat was already very touching. Each person held a rabbit leg and took a bite. The juice coated their lips, and their mouths were filled with the tender, fragrant rabbit meat, a sense of contentment that was indescribable. Soon, the three of them finished half a rabbit. If they had eaten to their heart's content, they could have finished the whole rabbit. But in the wilderness, one must leave room. No one knew if they could catch prey at night. The other half of the rabbit was wrapped in banana leaves by Ethan Blackwood and saved for dinner. Just then, rustling sounds came from a distance. Guan Sheng and his group had been chasing for more than half an hour and finally reached the vicinity. "They're about to catch up, let's leave quickly," Sophia Ashbourne said, her energy replenished after eating her fill. "Heh heh, what's the rush? These dogs, do they really think I'm prey? They must pay a price," Ethan Blackwood sneered, a fierce glint in his eyes. Sophia Ashbourne was taken aback. She had never seen Ethan Blackwood like this before. Ethan Blackwood tied the rabbit's internal organs with a hibiscus rope and threw them onto a branch, then secured the rope, letting them hang in the air. "You bunch of losers. Why did it take you so long to get here? Come quickly and die at my mercy," Ethan Blackwood shouted towards the distance. Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne were bewildered. What was he trying to do? Before they could ask, Ethan Blackwood pulled them into a pile of weeds to hide. "If you lure them here, we won't be able to escape." Sophia Ashbourne's delicate brows were furrowed. Ethan Blackwood sneered, his gaze fixed on the rabbit offal hanging in the air. "Black bears can smell blood from 40 kilometers away, based on the time it took us to butcher the rabbit. It should be about time. Are you trying to lure a black bear?" Sophia Ashbourne covered her small mouth with her hand. Her apricot eyes filled with surprise. She hadn't expected Ethan Blackwood to come up with such a countermeasure while being pursued. "Wow, Ethan. Do you think those scoundrels can take on a black bear?" Isabel Hawthorne asked excitedly. Soon, Guan Sheng and Lucas Everhart arrived at the spot where Ethan Blackwood and the girls had been eating, leading a group of people. "Brother Sheng, look, the campfire has just been extinguished." It was Ethan Blackwood shouting earlier. "Damn it, to be chased by so many of us and still dare to be S.O. Chinese letter, Chinese letter. I absolutely won't let him die easily." Lucas Everhart's eyes were bloodshot. Guan Sheng also clenched his fists. He had thought capturing Ethan Blackwood and the two girls would be a breeze. But not only had he not caught them for so long, but he had also been provoked by Ethan Blackwood. However, just as they were about to continue their pursuit, they suddenly heard movement ahead. Roar. Immediately, a terrifying roar made Guan Sheng and the others tremble. A huge black bear, with its mouth agape, charged towards them and directly swallowed the rabbit offal hanging from the tree. Then, its gaze turned towards Guan Sheng and his group. "Brother Sheng, it's a black bear." The subordinates immediately cried out in alarm. Although they were all martial arts practitioners, they had never encountered such a terrifying enemy. Brother Sheng, what should we do?" Lucas Everhart, who was already weak, now had his legs turning to jelly. Guan Sheng swallowed hard and shouted, "Run!" Instantly, a crowd scattered like startled birds and beasts, fleeing madly like headless flies. The black bear, which had been standing still, suddenly roared and began to chase crazily. Soon, one person was caught by the black bear and, before he could even cry for help, was smashed to death with a single blow. In the jungle, screams of terror echoed. Wow, the black bear is so powerful. If it were before, Isabel Hawthorne would not have been able to watch, but after handling the rabbit, she suddenly felt that such a scene was nothing. HMPH, a bunch of fools, if they hadn't fled in panic. Perhaps the black bear wouldn't have attacked them. Sophia Ashbourne, having experienced such an event with Ethan Blackwood, knew that a show of force could scare a black bear. Animals also had intelligence. The more you feared, the more ferociously they would attack. The black bear had been hesitating, but seeing all 20 men fleeing in disarray, it immediately launched its attack. Ethan Blackwood and the two girls, hiding, took advantage of the opportunity to slip away from behind the thicket. Heth, I bet they were all bitten to death by the black bear, Isabel Hawthorne said, devoid of any saintly compassion, since they wanted her dead. She wouldn't have any sympathy. However, Ethan Blackwood shattered her beautiful illusion. Black bears don't just bite for fun. Once they're full, they naturally won't chase anymore. They probably lost at most 2 or 3 people. Still, Ethan Blackwood was satisfied with this outcome. After all, the opposing party had a large number of people. To resolve this escape and survival crisis, he could only utilize the jungle and his extensive knowledge to slowly wear them down. As the sky gradually darkened, Ethan Blackwood and the two girls arrived at a flat area, under the pursuit of Guan Sheng and the others. It was impossible to continue resting on the beach. Therefore, they had to spend the night in the perilous jungle. The most important thing for camping in the wild was a bonfire, which could ward off wild beasts. However, the threat of venomous snakes and various poisonous insects still existed. Ethan Blackwood found a flat area and drew a circle, clearing away the leaves and weeds within the circle. What a waste of effort. They're sleeping on the ground. Why clear it? Sophia Ashbourne rolled her eyes at Ethan Blackwood. She was indeed clean. But what was the difference between sleeping on the ground and sleeping on leaves? Snakes and insects usually travel with cover and do not pass through open areas. If there is nothing on the ground, they will not come to disturb you. Ethan Blackwood explained. This circle was like Sun Wukong drawing a PROTECT-IV Chinese letter for Tang Sanzang. As long as they didn't step out, insects and snakes wouldn't enter. Sophia Ashbourne felt a little embarrassed. How could she be so foolish again? However, sleeping directly on the ground will cause rapid heat loss. You should spread dry pine needles in your sleeping area. Remember, the pine needles cannot touch the leaves outside the circle. You must leave an open area. Ethan Blackwood elaborated. After busy work for half an hour, they finally spread out the dry pine needles. They reheated the roasted rabbit they had prepared earlier, thus solving their dinner. I'm so thirsty. Isabel Hawthorne's lips were dry, and she looked dispirited. The water in the bamboo tubes had been drunk, and Ethan Blackwood's water canteen was almost empty. They hadn't found any water sources along the way, nor had they found any water vines, which were not common. Water and food were always indispensable. Fresh pine needles contain water and are rich in vitamin C, 8 times that of orange juice. The drawback is that they don't taste very good. Ethan Blackwood picked a large bunch of fresh pine needles and chewed as he spoke. No matter what the situation, the most important thing was to remain calm, to think meticulously. If one panicked in the face of adversity, they would lose their composure. Ethan, why do you know so much about wilderness survival? Sophia Ashbourne lay on the dry pine needles, her apricot eyes closed, her voice soft. This was the biggest question in her mind these past few days. Back in school, aside from being handsome, Ethan Blackwood was ordinary in every other aspect and hardly noteworthy. But in this wilderness, he shone like a star. My grandfather was an elite in the military. I was sent to the wilderness for training from a young age. Plus, I've watched many survival shows and read many books, so I naturally learned. Ethan Blackwood replied calmly. Sophia Ashbourne nodded. So that's how it was. She suddenly realized that perhaps boys didn't have to be gentlemen. Responsible and reliable boys were just as handsome. Moreover, Ethan Blackwood was already handsome. 9. Sophia Ashbourne injured, entering the canyon. Pine needles taste quite good. Better than side dishes in fancy hotels, Isabel Hawthorne said indistinctly. Her mouth full of pine needles. If it were before, she wouldn't have dared to imagine that she would end up eating leaves. But now, she had completely gotten used to it. The hardships of nature temper people the most. No matter how noble or luxurious a person is, their ancestors came from a period of primitive farming. Without nature's tempering, there would be no human civilization as it is today, Ethan Blackwood said, and then fell asleep first. However, Sophia Ashbourne's eyes suddenly opened. A glimmer of light in her beautiful pupils. She turned over and looked at Ethan Blackwood's profile. Her heart involuntarily lost in thought. She hadn't expected this arrogant guy to be able to speak such philosophical words casually. Looks good, doesn't he? Isabel Hawthorne's whisper reached her ears. Sophia Ashbourne nodded subconsciously. Then, realizing something was amiss, she blushed and pinched Isabel Hawthorne's face. Stupid Isabel. Stop teasing me. In the jungle at night, the sounds of insects and beasts could be heard intermittently. These did not affect Ethan Blackwood's sleep. Only the disorderly footsteps. Ethan Blackwood instantly woke up, gripping the military knife by his side. Rustling sounds echoed nearby. Guansheng, Lucas Everhart, and the others had their clothes tattered and disheveled. Many of them were injured. The Black Bear's pursuit had cost them 3 lives. Their resentment towards Ethan Blackwood deepened even further. They later realized that the reason they encountered the Black Bear must have been Ethan Blackwood's deliberate guidance. If the previous reason for dealing with Ethan Blackwood was for the 2 girls beside him, then now it was a genuine life-and-death hatred. Brother Sheng, there's firelight up ahead. Lucas Everhart's eyes were sharp, and he exclaimed excitedly. Damn it, I must take Ethan Blackwood's life, and those 2 little ladies. Didn't you expect I'd come chasing in the middle of the night? Guan Sheng's expression was ferocious. He waved his hand, leading more than a dozen people towards the firelight. But when they arrived, everyone was dumbfounded. On the dry pine needles on the ground, the English letters SB were drawn. As for Ethan Blackwood and the 2 girls, they were nowhere to be seen. Instantly, angry roars erupted. Chase them. Guan Sheng had lost all reason. He had been tricked once before. And now it was the 2nd time. How could he tolerate it? He immediately led his men to continue pursuing. Ethan Blackwood and his group shuttled through the dark jungle. Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne were both very nervous. They had been woken up by Ethan Blackwood in their sleep. But now they were no longer sleepy. Ethan, when we left, you wrote 2 English letters. They must be furious, Isabel Hawthorne said joyfully. She wished Guan Sheng and the others would die of anger. Anger is just a superficial manifestation. People lose their reason when they are angry, and in the wilderness. Failing to stay clear-headed means immense danger. Ethan Blackwood glanced at the sky and continued to flee forward. We're also in danger, running around blindly in the dark, Sophia Ashbourne said solemnly. Who says we're running around blindly? Look at that star in the sky. Ethan Blackwood pointed to the constellations in the sky and said, That's Ursa Major. Find the last 2 stars. And then count forward to the 4th star. That will be Polaris. The opposite direction is south. All the stars shift about every 50 minutes, but only Polaris does not. Therefore, on a clear night sky, one can rely on Polaris to determine direction. Sophia Ashbourne was stunned. Good heavens, there were so many ways to determine direction from just one aspect. And she had learned something new. Ethan Blackwood and the 2 girls deliberately slowed their pace for safety. But the direction was clear, so Guan Sheng could not catch up. Instead, the roars of wild beasts and panicked screams kept coming from behind, indicating that Guan Sheng and his group were not having an easy time. Nighttime was different from daytime. One had to remain quiet for safety, as wild beasts returned to their territories. During the pursuit, Guan Sheng and his group made too much noise, waking up many wild beasts. Not only could they not chase Ethan Blackwood and the two girls, but they were now struggling to protect themselves. After chasing for nearly half the night, they hadn't even seen Ethan Blackwood's back and had lost 2 more lives. As the sky turned white like fish belly, Ethan Blackwood and his group stopped. "Sophia, what happened to your hand?" Just then, Isabel Hawthorne's cry of alarm drew Ethan Blackwood's attention. "It's nothing." Sophia Ashbourne covered her arm with her fair hand, and red blood seeped through her fingers. Clearly, she was injured. "What happened?" Ethan Blackwood's brow furrowed. He quickly pulled Sophia Ashbourne's arm to examine it. A long gash was visible on her fair arm. It was clearly caused by a leaf with serrations. If the wound was not treated promptly, it would easily become infected. "I'm fine." Sophia Ashbourne tried to pull her hand back. She had never had physical contact with a boy before. Although there was a reason for it now, she still felt a subtle sensation in her heart. Moreover, she was very strong-willed and not like those delicate girls who would cry out over minor injuries. Although her arm hurt, it was within her tolerance, so she had gritted her teeth and endured. "If the wound gets infected, you'll become a one-armed lady," Ethan Blackwood said, his eyes scanning the surroundings. Plants that could stop bleeding in the wild were very precious, so finding them was not easy. However, after searching for a while, Ethan Blackwood made a discovery. On a very dry patch of land, several red aloes grew. Ethan Blackwood cut down 2 stalks, split them down the middle, peeled off the skin, leaving only the translucent aloe flesh. "Give me your hand." He mashed the aloe flesh and applied it to Sophia Ashbourne's wound. Ethan Blackwood tore a piece of cloth from his clothes to use as a bandage and wrapped the wound. Red aloe has anti-inflammatory properties. Be careful not to get the wound wet, Ethan Blackwood instructed. "Thank you." Sophia Ashbourne lowered her eyes and thanked him softly. Ethan Blackwood didn't mind. After resting for a while, he led the 2 girls forward. However, soon there was no path ahead. A cliff face blocked their path. Ethan Blackwood looked down and couldn't help but click his tongue. The geological structure of this island was truly marvelous. Below this cliff was a large plain. Further away, through the mist, they could see a towering mountain, with snow-capped peaks even visible on its summit. In front of them was a tropical rainforest, and in the distance, a snow-capped mountain. These landforms were all concentrated on one island. It was just that the snow-capped mountain was very far away, not reachable in a few days. Now, Ethan Blackwood and the 2 girls had to consider how to descend the 50-meter-high cliff. "Ethan, how do we get down? If we linger any longer, Guan Sheng and the others will catch up," Sophia Ashbourne said. Ethan Blackwood searched everywhere to descend from such a height. Ropes were essential. The hibiscus rope was too short and could not support a person's weight. "Got it." Higura vine. This was the toughest vine in the jungle, whether in canyons or under waterfalls. Just one of these vines was enough to climb down with ease. Most importantly, Higura vine was very long and did not require any connecting. Ethan Blackwood cut for more than 10 seconds with his military knife to sever a vine, a testament to its toughness. If he hadn't had this weapon, he wouldn't have been able to cut the vine at all. Just then, the rustling sound of the group passing through the jungle was heard again from not too far away. Clearly, Guan Sheng and Lucas Everhart had caught up. "Who goes down first?" Ethan Blackwood tied one end of the vine to a thick tree trunk and asked the 2 girls. The 2 girls would certainly not be able to rock climb. Ethan Blackwood had to hold the vine from above and slowly lower them. So he had to be the last one down. "Sophia, I'm afraid of heights. What should I do?" Isabel Hawthorne's legs trembled as she looked down into the canyon. "Don't be afraid." "Isabel, I'll go down first and wait for you below." Although Sophia Ashbourne was also a bit scared, now was not the time to hesitate. If they waited any longer, it would be dangerous once the enemy arrived. Ethan Blackwood wrapped the vine around Sophia Ashbourne's waist and instructed, "Be careful." Sophia Ashbourne nodded firmly, took a deep breath, suppressed her rapidly beating heart, and stepped out into the void. The sensation of weightlessness immediately hit her, but her body was quickly stabilized. Ethan Blackwood pulled the vine with all his might and slowly lowered her down. When the vine was taut, Sophia Ashbourne's voice came from below. "Ethan, Isabel, I've reached the bottom of the canyon." 10, aren't you furious?" Ethan Blackwood and Isabel Hawthorne heard the shout and came to the edge of the cliff to look down, only to see Sophia Ashbourne waving safely. Ethan Blackwood felt relieved. It seemed that as long as he operated properly, this method of descending the cliff was safe. "You go down first, I'll go down last." Isabel Hawthorne's legs trembled. 50 meters high, if she fell, wouldn't she be completely smashed? She had a severe fear of heights. "Don't worry. I can hold you and slowly lower you down. You don't have to do anything," Ethan Blackwood reassured her. If he had a choice, Ethan Blackwood would also have preferred to be lowered down. Which would have been much easier? The one going down last would have to climb laboriously. Cold sweat beaded on Isabel Hawthorne's fair forehead. She hadn't expected difficulties to keep coming. Dissecting the rabbit yesterday was nothing compared to the cliff face. Just as Isabel Hawthorne was extremely nervous, Ethan Blackwood's hand rested on her shoulder. "As long as you overcome this hurdle, you'll be able to descend 100 cliffs without batting an eyelid." Ethan Blackwood's voice was very soft, but it seemed to have a special power to soothe fear, making Isabel Hawthorne's fearful heart gradually firm up. "I can definitely do it," Isabel Hawthorne shouted, grabbed the rocks on the cliff with both hands, and leaped down. The strong sense of weightlessness almost made her scream instinctively, but she ultimately held back. Not only that, but she forced herself to open her eyes wide and kept looking down. Isabel Hawthorne knew that if she closed her eyes, although it would reduce fear, it would have no effect on her training. Only by facing fear head-on could true tempering be achieved. Indeed, when Isabel Hawthorne landed safely, she looked up at the cliff face with an indescribable sense of conquest. The seemingly insurmountable chasm in her heart could be crossed with just one step forward. The more she feared, the less she could conquer the enemy in her heart. "Ethan, hurry up and come down." Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne began to worry about Ethan Blackwood. After all, neither of them had exerted any effort. It was all thanks to Ethan Blackwood pulling and lowering them. Ethan Blackwood, wanting to descend the cliff, had to climb by himself. Rock climbing first required planning the route in one's mind. Making decisions on the spot on the rock face would easily lead to mistakes, and once a mistake was made, the abyss awaited. Ethan Blackwood had already read the climbing route while lowering the two girls. It could be said that even without the vine tied to him, Ethan Blackwood was confident he could climb down the cliff with his bare hands. But now was not the time to show off. Having an extra layer of insurance was very important. Tying the vine around his waist, Ethan Blackwood grabbed 2 rocks, extended 1 foot, and stepped onto a carefully selected rock, slowly climbing down the cliff step by step. A key technique in rock climbing is that 3 of the 4 limbs must be firmly attached to the rocks. In other words, only one limb is ever in motion. This way, the body can be stabilized. Secondly, the leverage point must be on the legs. Hands are only for maintaining stability. Arm strength is far inferior to leg strength. Moreover, arms should remain bent. If they are stretched upwards for too long, blood will not flow to the palms, and the palms will become numb, making it easy to lose grip. Soon, Ethan Blackwood had climbed 2/3 of the way. Look, there's a vine there. Ethan Blackwood, that bastard, must be descending the cliff. However, when Ethan Blackwood was halfway down, noisy voices suddenly came from above the cliff. Ethan Blackwood's expression turned cold. It seemed the enemy had caught up. He made a decisive move and cut the vine at his waist with his knife. Then, he found a visual blind spot above and concealed himself. If he continued to be tied by the vine, he would be at the mercy of others. If they pulled the vine and swung it wildly from above, Ethan Blackwood would be in danger. Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne's hearts were in their throats. 50 meters of cliff. Ethan Blackwood was still at a height of more than 20 meters with no protection. With just one wrong move, he would fall into the abyss. Guan Sheng and Lucas Everhart and their group had already pursued them to the edge of the cliff. Brother Sheng, I see Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne. They're down there. Lucas Everhart, covered in dust, stared at the bottom of the cliff with a grim expression. After 2 days of pursuit, he was now more ragged than a beggar. His resentment had reached its peak. Good, we'll go down now. We've even prepared the vine for you. Ha 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 ha. Guan Sheng was overjoyed, but his remaining reason kept him from acting impulsively. Instead, he pointed to a subordinate and said, You go down first. I'll hold you from above. That subordinate wished he could die. Wasn't this sending him to explore? But Guan Sheng's words were now like imperial decrees. And how could he dare to refuse? He could only tie the vine several times around his waist and then carefully climb down the cliff. However, with someone holding him from above, he was indeed completely at ease, which relaxed him considerably. But suddenly, a dazzling cold light flashed. Before this person could understand what was happening, he felt a chill on his throat and lost consciousness. Brother Sheng. He's already descended the cliff, Lucas Everhart shouted. Quick, help Brother Sheng catch Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne. However, the man lay motionless on the ground, as if he hadn't heard anything. Something's wrong. Send down another one. Guan Sheng frowned, pulled the vine up, and then pointed to another subordinate. This subordinate was filled WITH, Chinese letter. But he had to bite the bullet, wrap the vine around himself, and slowly descend the cliff. But to Guan Sheng's horror, the result was the same as the previous time. A perfectly healthy person who lay motionless at the bottom of the cliff. What was going on? Only Sophia Ashbourne and Isabel Hawthorne below the cliff could see clearly. It was Ethan Blackwood hiding in the visual blind spot. As soon as someone descended, passing by him, a flash of knife light would appear. Wow. Sophia Ashbourne, Ethan Blackwood is so fierce. Isabel Hawthorne clapped her hands excitedly, not feeling Ethan Blackwood's actions were improper at all. Sophia Ashbourne was somewhat taken aback. Before, she had thought Ethan Blackwood luring wild beasts was already very ruthless. She hadn't expected Ethan Blackwood to have an even more ruthless side. Indeed, in such a life-and-death crisis, if Ethan Blackwood were not ruthless, and they fell into the hands of the enemy, would there be a good outcome? They would only die a more miserable death, and she and Isabel would wish they were dead. Thinking of it this way, Sophia Ashbourne understood. On the cliff, Guan Sheng and the others finally realized something was wrong. Brother Sheng, where is that bastard Ethan Blackwood? Lucas Everhart's eyes were dim, and he had been searching for Ethan Blackwood's figure, but couldn't find him at all. This bizarre scene was probably caused by Ethan Blackwood. Damn it, could he be hiding on the rock face? Guan Sheng was furious. He also felt a surge of fear. If he hadn't held back and gone down first, wouldn't he be the one dead? Yet even so, Ethan Blackwood had caused him to lose 2 more subordinates. After 2 days of pursuit, a total of 8 people had been lost, from a team of nearly 20 people to only a little over 10 now. Ethan Blackwood, I swear we are irreconcilable enemies. Unable to suppress his inner fury, Guan Sheng roared at the canyon. But the only response he received was the higura vine hanging on the cliff, which snapped in the middle. Clearly, after being discovered, Ethan Blackwood directly cut the vine in half. This way, the enemy would not be able to descend the cliff. After all, Ethan Blackwood's physical strength was not infinite, and hanging on the rock face consumed a lot of energy. After dealing with 2 enemies and being discovered, Ethan Blackwood decisively cut the vine. As expected, it's that bastard Ethan Blackwood. When Ethan Blackwood's figure reappeared on the rock face, Lucas Everhart immediately discovered him and shouted angrily. But when they searched for stones and prepared to throw them at Ethan Blackwood had already nimbly climbed to the bottom of the valley. Tusk, I say, you bunch of losers, 20 people are no match for me. How pathetic. Ethan Blackwood grinned, standing at the bottom of the valley with a contemptuous smile, and snorted. He was not an arrogant person. He was deliberately provoking them now, to make them lose their reason, to make them unable to think, to make them go berserk. Indeed, under Ethan Blackwood's taunts, the angry curses from above the cliff were endless. However, this did not achieve the effect Ethan Blackwood desired. Ethan Blackwood flashed a wicked smile, put an arm around Sophia Ashbourne and hooked it around Isabel Hawthorne. He shouted, "They are already my women. Guan Sheng, Lucas Everhart, how angry are you?